Now, joining me on the big interview tonight is a lady who is a journalist, she's a TV presenter, and you know what? She was once Baby Spice as well. If you don't believe me, keep watching the big interview with Anne Hales. How are you?
How did you know?
One of my favourite TV moments of all time.
Mine too.
Yeah, but you know what? We're going to keep it a secret until a bit later in the interview, because I want to start off with UTV, especially at the moment that we've lost that wonderful Havelock House building. The doors have been closed. It's going to be turned into apartments or something. You must be terribly sad about that.
No, I'm not a bit sad, to tell you the truth. Bricks and mortar.
Yeah.
I mean, I am emotional. I was very emotional when I saw some of the looking back programmes. And I thought, oh gosh, those days were great. My day. Yeah. My day, which was way back, 50 plus years ago. We lived a wonderful life. It was right at the very beginning of television. We weren't trained. Yeah. People came over from London and tried to sort of say, we're the big bejesus and we'll tell you all about it. But it was enthusiasm and trying, and it was brilliant. And I think we did some very important things in those days.
So how did you get the first gig in UTV then? How did it happen? Was it just an advert in the paper and you went along?
Maybe I shouldn't say this out loud, but I was asked to leave school at 15.
Right.
The headmaster sent for my dad and said, look, we like her well enough, but she really is wasting space that somebody else could take up. And they talked away and decided I would be better to be more hands-on with something, right, which was the best decision anybody ever made, because there at 15, I was walking out of school, went to Miss Elliott's, did shorthand and typing. When I was 17, there was an ad in the paper about this new television station. And my mum said to me, I think you should apply for that. And I said, I don't know. And she said, do, see anyway. Now, the offices at that time were in Donegal Street, just next door to these studios. And I was going past one day and I just popped in and I said to the girl behind the counter, it was in the old newsletter office. And I said, I believe, there's something going on. Could I apply for a job? And she said, you and 2,000 others. And my logic was, okay, can I be 2001? And she said, yeah. Gave me a form, I filled it in, and got the job. And
what was your first job in UTV?
My first job was typing a record of all the films that came in, all the commercials, which were on 60mm, all the big films, Robin Hood, all of that, on 35mm. So as they came in, I had to type little strips that went into a carousel, that went into the film library. So when the schedule said Robin Hood, the guys in the film library went ching, 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 Robin Hood number so-and-so, shelf so-and-so, and it went down to transmission control. So and very soon after that, I was making up the routine sheets. Right. So it was a nice sort of follow-on.
So how did you go from there to actually getting your face on TV then?
There was a big gap in between. When in 1966, I married one of the cameramen,
and you weren't allowed to do that back then, were you?
Then I had to leave. Gloria had to leave, Claire had to leave, everybody had to leave. Now, there wasn't a law about it. It was just a hangover, apparently from the war years. When the men went to war, the women filled in the men's jobs. When they came back, women had to move. And it was a sort of just a hangover from that somebody brightly thought, oh well, women can't hold jobs if their husbands are there. Same in the civil service, in teaching, in all those walks of life.
Crazy.
And then one of the girls challenged it and it all fell apart.
So you were allowed back in then?
No, I didn't want to go back in. I'd gone into public relations then, right, which I loved. Started writing, all the handouts, etc. And I was hosting the Monday Club, it was called, in the Russell Court Hotel, where we had a client every Monday morning, 12 o'clock every Monday, and all the press were invited. So it was the client's gig. They were sort of centre stage to talk about their business, and all the journalists were there because it was a party atmosphere, and that was my responsibility. So I was running parties every Monday, which was great. Brilliant. And did a lot of other bits and pieces as well. And then Gloria phoned me one day and said, starting a new programme called Taste of Honey, and would like you to go to take half a dozen supermarkets, half a dozen products, do a price comparison. And I said, okay, I can do that. It was Tuesday. And I said, well, when do you want it? Thursday, okay. Will I leave it at reception? No, she said, get your butt up here. And I said, you don't mean you want me to speak it? And she said, if I didn't think you could speak it, I wouldn't be asking you. Now I'm telling you, get your butt up here on Thursday. And that started me working in the BBC.
Right.
And I ended up having my own programmes. And then UTV asked me, would I front a programme? And I said no. They asked me a second time, and I said no, not interested. The third time I said, this is all, within a couple of months, I said, look, give me until tomorrow. And I went home and I said to Alan, what do you think? And he said, absolutely, why not? My daughter said, Mum, you are, and she was just starting grammar school, Mum, you are a journalist. A lot of your friends would give their eye teeth for a job like that. And it's only till Christmas anyway, why not try it? And I'll never forget my son, who was just 2 years older, and he was like this up against the door, and he said, anyway, Mum, think of the money. And I thought, between them, I'll do it, I'll try it. And it took off.
So did you and Gloria Hunniford remain good friends then over the years?
We still are.
Yeah.
That's the unique thing about our lives in television. People think it might have been bitchy, and it wasn't. Yeah. I mean, with the ups and downs, obviously. But we still meet once a month in the kitchen bar. There could be 2 of us and there could be 22 of us. Right. And we're all, our friendships go back over 50 years.
Apart from Gloria, who else was around then? Anne Gregg would have been around that time as well.
Anne was there. Anne was the youngest ever to front a magazine programme. Beautiful voice, gorgeous girl. And she and Ivor Mills did that programme together. Adrian, I see Adrian all the time. She was Miss Adrian Romperoo. Yeah. And, if we're out somewhere and I'd introduce her and say to some man, do you remember Miss Adrian Romperoo? I was on your programme, oh Miss Adrian.
Another show lovely. People still say to me as well, they were on Tea Time with Tommy as well.
Oh, he was great. He was a lovely man. He was called the accelerating pianist because he would start and he'd get so excited, he'd go up and down the piano. And he was lovely. He was such a nice man. And it was funny, there were twins called Derek Thompson and Elaine. And they used to come in and we would record on a Saturday 5 musical items and one went out each weeknight. Yeah. And that's why I hate Velia, the nymph of the wood. Every soprano who came in to be auditioned sang Velia, and they never got the top note. But anyway, this little boy and little girl came in and they sang Yellow Bird up high in banana tree, and the props man was up a ladder shaking a tree with bananas hooked onto it. And that now is what you call the man in Casualty, Fairbairn?
He's Charlie.
Charlie
in Casualty.
In Casualty. Yeah. That was Charlie and his cousin or twin, I'm not sure which, Elaine, and he started off in UTV.
Wow, and of course during the 60s, especially in UTV, there were lots of big stars coming in and out of the studios. Everybody came.
Yeah, because the Boom Boom Room was big time then, and I mean lots of clubs were on the go. And everybody wanted it. Was on the circuit. Yeah. And because UTV spilled over into Scotland, down south, whenever the transmitters went up, Isle of Man, it was a really great place for advertisers because their product was shown much, much wider than would be maybe in Scotland on its own because it didn't come to us. So all the singers, people who wrote books, they all wanted to be on UTV, or their agents wanted them to be. And I remember one night, because I eventually ended up in the studio as a production assistant, timing programs, calling shots, things like that. And this man followed me around afterwards, and he cornered me in the hall on the way out, and he said, I'd like you to come and have dinner with me. Now, bear in mind, I was about 20. And I said, oh, that's very kind of you, but I'm sorry, I can't. I'm going to visit my Auntie Joan in hospital. And he said, you can do that another time. I want you to come and have dinner with me. And I said, well, I'm very sorry. I'm going to see my Auntie Joan. And he said, you can see your Auntie Joan anytime. You can't have dinner with Harold Robbins anytime. the guy who wrote the Carpetbaggers.
Wow, yes, yeah.
And I just said, well, I'm sorry, and walked away. Then I discovered years later he had 6 wives and he left every wife £1 million.
And of course, all the pop stars of the day would have been coming in, people like Tom Jones.
Tom Jones was interesting, yeah. I had to go and get his contract signed. Knocked on the dressing room door. He was stripped off to his waist, rabbit foot hanging, big medallion. Lovely guy. And we were very polite in those days. And I said, Mr. Jones, I wonder, would you mind signing your contract? And he said, certainly, love, and do it. And I said, you know, we really think your record, it's not unusual, is very, very good, and we wish you well with it. And he said, well, thank you very much indeed. He said, I'm going to make the best of it because I think it's just a one-off.
Oh, wow, what a great story.
But my heartthrob was Adam Faith, you see. And he came, yes, yeah, 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
He was tiny, but oh, he was beautiful.
Yeah.
Such a good actor, such a great singer.
Mm-hmm.
I have lovely photographs of him, as you can see. And Bruce Forsyth, he was great. He came across as well. Mm-hmm. The person who impressed me most was a little woman called Gladys Aylward.
Right.
Do you remember the Inn of the Sixth Happiness?
Yes, of course.
And she brought those children across the mountains into safety from China.
You met her.
And she was tiny. I think she had become a Chinese citizen by then because she was wearing, you know, like the navy pajamas, little hat and her white hair. She was tiny. And I don't remember what she said, but I just remember a great peacefulness around her, a great strength. She was very, very impressive.
Let's talk about Ask Anne, because a lot of people still remember that and have fond memories of that show, don't they?
Well, I hope so. I thought it was a good programme because, like, I was in the middle between the public who wanted to know things and people who could give them the information they needed. So I was a sort of conduit. And I think it worked because I did what people told me to do. And we had some very, very good programmes. There's one especially that I remember with great fondness. The Ulster Cancer Foundation had started a mastectomy service, and they'd got a nice wardrobe of mastectomy swimwear and things like that together, and said, could you do something to advertise this? And I said, well, let's do the whole programme about the Ulster Cancer Foundation, which we did, got great support. And it's funny, I know it helped a lot of people. It helped me because I then, subsequently, years later, did have breast cancer and a mastectomy, and this is not me on this side. Right. But I was able to smile at certain things because of the women I advertised. One lovely lady, and she came on and she said, you know, I've lost this breast, but what we do is we just make up a nice little packet of birdseed and sew it into, you know, a little pouch, and I put it inside my bra, and it's great, just gives me a nice shape. And I was saying, yes, that's such a good idea. And she said, it is a great idea until you're cleaning the toilet and you lean over too far and it falls out. I said, what you do, you know, by the stairs.
Yes, yeah.
And she said, I took it out and I washed it well, hot water, and I rubbed it with the towel and I put it in the hot press. And I said, that was good. Yeah. She said, no, it wasn't. Went back 2 days later and it sprouted. And another lady, she said she so much wanted to go. She had a big dance coming up and she wanted a new dress. And we went to Debenhams and explained the situation, and they of course weighed in and had all these dresses that she could choose. And we were filming, and she went in with and she'd said to me beforehand, I would love more than anything in the world to wear a strapless dress, but she said, I can't. She'd had a double mastectomy. And I said, oh, that's rotten, we'll try these anyway and see how you go. So she said, she shouted out, are you ready? And film camera rolled, and I said, yep, we're ready, come on. And she opened the curtains, and she was standing there in the most beautiful, full-length, royal blue dress, and it was strapless.
Yeah.
And I'll cry. She said, look at me, I'm beautiful.
Oh, wow.
And that programme was worth it just for that.
Yeah. I'm thinking about a lot of our journalists over the years, especially journalists who had to report on the Troubles, who've seen a lot of horrendous things and a lot of very emotional things as well. You did as well. You had a pretty scary moment during the reporting the Troubles, didn't you?
Well, yes, but nothing compared to my colleagues and the book that Ivan has brought out with Derek. Reporting the Troubles is a wonderful reflection of what those guys went through, and women, and men, and camera crews, and photographers. And people don't realise, and that book really tells you. As far as I was concerned, I was working for the World Service at that time, and children were being sent off on these holidays to get Catholic and Protestant kids together, going to America or to Scandinavian countries. And I was to go down and interview a mother in Uri about her children going off and how she felt about it. And I was told, now drive down to the Ardmore Hotel, where it was, there's a lay-by, park your car, there'll be a car waiting for you, it will take you up into this estate, do your interview, they'll bring you back, get into your car and come back to the studio. I said, okay, fine. So with my Euro tape recorder, I set off. Investigative girl journalist, got to the lay-by, car was there, man got out, all dressed, collar up, didn't quite have a balaclava, but I couldn't see his face. And he just opened the back door, and I got in, 2 other men inside, nobody spoke. I didn't speak. Up into the housing estate, it was during the dirty progress, black flags everywhere. And I thought, there wasn't a sinner around, and came to a row of houses, and dilapidated, gate was off, the garden was very sort of overgrown, front door was open, all the men got out, ushered me up into a room, still nobody spoke. They were up against a wall, you know, like this, and it was very obviously they were toting guns because I could see them. And this poor woman sitting on one side of a table and me on this side. And we talked, and she was very limited to what she could say, and she said all the right things. But there was such a longing in her eyes to sort of say, I wish I could talk to you properly.
Of course, yes.
And then it was sort of indicated, that's enough, up you get. And on the way I thought, I can't leave it like that. And I sort of pushed this guy aside and went back to her and just gave her a big hug, you know, and she gave me a big hug.
Yeah.
And I said, you take care. And then got back in the car, back to the lay-by. Nobody had spoken to me. And got out, I opened the back door, got out, and was walking away, and the man said, okay, on. And I thought, Got into my car, got to Banbridge, and had to stop, because then the nerves and the horror and the sadness just hit.
You're still working away as a journalist today.
Of course.
Do you still enjoy it as much as you did back then?
Every minute of it.
Yeah.
I used to think I'd like to be the Queen, because I could say, I'd like to go down a salt mine tomorrow and have a look. A journalist can do that.
Yeah.
So I'd rather be a journalist.
We mentioned Baby Spice at the top of the show. You've done a lot for charity over the years, and I'm thinking about a memorable moment on the Children in Need programme. Tell us about that.
Those are the good old days of Children in Need, when locally we were all involved in the BBC, and we answered phones, and it was a great night, and we raised a lot of money. But it was very local.
Yes,
people came and went, all the so-called personalities, I don't like that word, but we were all there anyway. And we all had to do a party piece. So they did the Spice Girls this particular year, and I was Baby Spice. And we had to learn to dance and do the whole thing. And that was grand, and it was good fun.
Yeah.
The following year, we did the animals, the Jungle Book.
Jungle Book, yes.
And I had to dress up as a bear. Isn't there a bear in Jungle Book?
Yeah.
And that was great, all face painted like a bear, dancing away, doing the whole bit. Got home, and my husband said, that was really terrific. You were very well padded. I said, it wasn't padded.
There's a performer in you, I think, and I know you've done Panto before.
Once.
Was that a good experience?
Wonderful. I'm sorry, everything has been charmed, you know. I was sitting in a restaurant, as I'm wont to do, and my phone rang, and it was the Opera House to say, would you be interested in being in this summer pantomime, Beauty and the Beast. And I said, yeah. And Derek Nichols said, do you not want to know about it? And I said, no, I always say yes. Yeah. Then if it doesn't work out, I can say, look, this isn't working. But, you know, if you think I can do it, I'll give it a go. And it turned out to be 7 wonderful weeks, terrifying weeks, mind you, because I'd never been on stage. Yeah. And I ended up being Lionel Blair's mother, the Countess. Brilliant. The big crinoline, the big hats. And Lionel Blair was an absolute pet. Because we rehearsed in Islington in the Tower Theatre, and I arrived on the 12th of July, and sitting in the garden, Bella Emberg, who's a big lady who
from the Ross Abbott show,
yes, wore the Union Jack swimsuit. Yeah. She was sitting at one corner and she looked very cross, and I thought, I'm going to have to crack this. So I went over and said, would you mind if I sit beside you? Beautiful day. And she said, no, I wouldn't mind. And I said, right. I said, you don't seem very happy. And she said, would you be if you cared anything about the English cricket team? And I said, but I do care about the English cricket team, and I know they've done terribly badly. And I told her the score, and she sort of said, are you interested in cricket? And I said, yes. I played cricket for Ulster ladies, which I did. Right. And she said, well, I don't suppose you're a Lady Taverner? And I said, well, actually I am. And we were like that after that. And she died recently. It was so sad. But then the next thing was this white tornado come into the garden. And he said, darlings, I'm sorry, I couldn't get the roller parked. He said, in fact, I'm on double yellow lines, but I've put a note on saying, darlings, Lionel here just nipped into rehearsal. We'll move this at the first break. And I thought, what am I going to do with him? So I went up and I said, Lionel, I am your mother, and I do not think you should be breaking the law like that. And he said, Mummy. And the funny thing was, he went out to move it afterwards, and he got a parking ticket. Oh, wow. But he rings every Christmas morning. Really? Yeah. Oh, wow. And he rang me not so long ago. He said, Mummy, it's your London son. And I said, yes, I know, Lionel. He said, how do I make potato bread?
There's a great photograph in your book that I want to talk to you about of Candy Devine, way back in the 60s. Yes. A great photograph of Candy.
Isn't it lovely?
She was an amazing singer as well, wasn't she?
Still is.
Still is, yeah.
Still is, yeah. I'm in touch with her, most days. She's in Australia now, in Brisbane. But such is the power of Facebook and email. We talk to each other a lot. She's so happy. She has settled down so well. Yeah. But a special lady. Yeah. Special. I
see quite a lot of you these days in theatres. We tend to be sitting together at lots of shows and stuff. You're reviewing the shows, obviously. What do you think of Northern Ireland theatre at the moment?
Oh, I think it's very vibrant just now. And I think, the small, you know better than I do, the smaller companies that are coming up using young people, I think that's absolutely brilliant because there's a huge amount of talent. And the lyrics doing well. I worked for so long with the Ulster Actors Company in the arts, and that was a tremendous education for me, for I knew nothing about theatre. And that was terrific. Sometimes I meet kids who took part in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, for instance. We had choirs from all the schools come in, and I still meet people who were involved in those shows and have never given up on theatre and loving theatre. Maybe didn't go into it, but still support. And one man who's now a headmaster in Lisburn, he was one of those school kids. Right. And his school, Pond Park, has got a fabulous musical entity to it, thanks to Mr. Cherry.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, so it continues like one big circle. It just comes and goes, but it never goes completely.
So Anne, you've achieved so much in your career. You've done so much. You've met many, many great people. Is there still ambitions? Is there still stuff you really want to do?
I've never had ambition at all. It's all happened. Yeah. If you don't say no, things happen. Yes. I'm very pleased at several things. I was given a Life Achievement Award by my colleagues. I got an MBE, which was lovely because people had put my name forward. That is very good, but I get my kicks from writing, from talking to people. And it's lovely if somebody bothers to say, thank you, that was good. And you're always trying to promote people in whatever way, charities and businesses, etc., etc. So privileged is an overworked word, but it is a privilege to have had space in radio, television, newspapers. What more could I ask for?
Well, Anne, as always, it's been great talking to you, and thank you so much for doing the big interview with us.
My great pleasure, Robin.
Thank you.